Last week, I did a little experiment and I did a body hack to be able to make me stay up over 24 hours. Now, I do not recommend this, but this is more of an emergency situation, like if you have a travel situation that you know that you're going to be up for a long period of time. Not getting sleep is detrimental to your health. So this is only a hack when you have emergency situations and you need to stay up over 24 hours. I'm going to share with you the tips that I did to get me through that long day. Welcome to Be Well Healthy Living. My name is Tara and I'm a Master Certified Health and Wellness Coach. So although I was able to stay up over 24 hours, this is something that I do not recommend. And again, I want to re-emphasize that sleep is incredibly important for our health, and doing something like this is not recommended, and it's only to be used in cases of emergencies. A little bit of background to the story is that I was traveling from a southern state to the West Coast, and I was flying out very early in the morning. And when I arrived on the West Coast, I knew I was going to have to be up all day and all night to catch an early flight, basically 24 hours later, to catch it going back the other direction. So I knew I was going to be up for over 24 hours and not get enough sleep. Here's a little clip of me at the airport at the very beginning before I left.
Good morning. I have a very long day ahead of me. It is 4:20 in the morning Central Time. So I'm going to be flying to the West Coast this morning, and I have a very long day there, and I'm actually doing a quick turnaround trip and I'm coming right back. So I'm going to see how I manage this day with controlled caffeine intake. So I'm going to be documenting my day along as I go, just to see how I handle it. It's 4:20 in the morning. I woke up at around 2:30, 2:45 in the morning to get to the airport on time, and I have not had any caffeine. I have not had any coffee, no caffeine. I do have a beverage though to hydrate, but no caffeine whatsoever. And so not even decaf. So I'm going to be documenting my day along and see how it goes with limited caffeine intake and controlled caffeine intake at the proper times, to see how it makes me get through an extremely long day.
So before you begin any type of hack like this, there's a couple things that I did beforehand to prep my body for this long day. The first one was that I was taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D a day. I was taking that every single day for probably about a week and a half beforehand. And the reason why is because I wanted to ensure that I had enough vitamin D, because going on an airplane, first of all, I'm being exposed to a lot of different germs, being out there, my body would become more susceptible to getting sick. Vitamin D is one of the top things that you can do and you can take to help boost your immune system to make it nice and strong. And because a lack of sleep makes you more sensitive to getting sick, make you more susceptible, I knew that I needed to strengthen my immune system going into that type of situation. So I prepared my immune system in advance by taking high levels of vitamins, and especially that vitamin D. So taking that vitamin D beforehand in large quantities boosted my vitamin D levels. So I knew, especially going in the winter, I knew that it was going to be a big help in preserving my immune system so that I wouldn't get sick. Now, a week later, I still have not gotten sick, and so it has enabled me to stay healthy through not only that long day, but afterwards as well. Another thing that I did beforehand, and this is actually a way of life for me, is that I am caffeine independent. And what that means is that I do not use caffeine on a regular basis, meaning I don't drink caffeinated coffees in the morning. I don't drink sodas on a regular basis. I don't drink any type of tea or anything like that that has caffeine in it. So on a regular basis, I do not have any caffeine in my system. So when I get up, my body is used to utilizing my own hormones to be able to get through the day, to be able to rise and get through the day without any stimulants to get me going. I know this sounds crazy for a lot of people who can't imagine life without that morning cup of coffee. However, I have done numerous videos describing why it is important to utilize less and less caffeine. And if you can get no caffeine, that is even better. But the less caffeine you utilize, the better it is for you. It's better for your health, for your hormone balancing, and for sleep as well. Plus, that way, whenever you need to use it in times of emergencies, such as this long day that I'm describing, you can actually use it to your benefit and to your favor, because you know that that caffeine is going to have a big impact when you do take it. So trust me on this one. If you can live your life without caffeine and get off of caffeine, it's going to be so much better for you for sleep and a whole bunch of other reasons. I will put a link at the end of this video describing how caffeine works in our system. The night before my trip, I went to bed at 8:30 p.m. and I had my alarm set for 3 a.m. to get to the airport on time. I did wake up a little bit early. I woke up at 2:30 a.m. and so I just decided to get up and start the day then. So that gave me approximately 6 hours of sleep. Now, the more sleep that you can get beforehand, if you can get your normal 7 to 8 hours of sleep that you normally would have before a day like this, the better. 6 hours was close. It wasn't as much as I had liked, but however, it still worked good. Throughout the day, I ate very little. I didn't actually have my first meal until after 13 hours after I had already been awake. Now, if you're used to intermittent fasting, this might be something simple for you. However, I wound up having a protein bar on the airplane. So I got to the airport, got everything I needed to be done, waited till I got on the airplane, and finally I had half a protein bar for the first serving, and then a little bit later I had half a protein bar later on. And then a little bit later on, I had a Sprite Zero. I know it's soda, whatever, but I was getting a little bit hungry and I did not want to eat. I know that the fizzies would help make me feel a little bit satiated, and I had the Sprite because it had zero caffeine in it. So it was one thing that I made that decision at the time that I thought this is going to be better for me because I did not want to sacrifice eating sugar and I did not want to eat a lot at that time because I felt like it was better just to maintain my blood sugar and keep it very, very low. Now, by the time I landed, got the rental car, got everything I needed to do, once I got there and got on the road, I got to my friend's house and he so graciously made me some lunch, and that was 13 hours later. And I made sure that I ate a very, very high protein. I wanted to eat completely no carbs at this time, but he was so gracious and made me some buttered toast with the eggs. And so I went ahead and ate it. But even still, it was minimal compared to the amount of protein that I had already eaten that day. So make sure that you eat high quantities of protein, very low carbs or no carbs if you can for the first part of the day. Because if you eat those carbohydrates, it's going to spike your blood sugar and then you're going to drop. So what you're trying to do by having no carbs is keeping your energy level as sustained throughout the day and as level as possible. So no carbohydrates at this particular point in time. So at about 7 p.m. Pacific Coast time, which was about 16 and a half hours after I had been awake, I had a meeting. And at that point, I was still going strong. I was still sharp, still felt great, and I was ready to go for my meeting. And I felt fantastic, even at that meeting, which was already so far into the day without any type of caffeine. So I was doing very, very good. And throughout the day beforehand, again, I kept my blood sugar low so that there was no energy spikes that way. Had no caffeine, so I was still relying on my own energy. And I kept it very happy. I was pretty relaxed. And even though my plane was delayed, I had due to weather, my plane was severely delayed. I wound up missing my connection in Dallas, and I wound up getting connected on another plane. And even that was a tight connection. I had to do the airport sprint when I got to Dallas. I still made my connection, but it was a very, very tight connection. Still made it. I was able to have that little bit of stress, but not too much because I was still pretty relaxed. Got to just hang out, close my eyes a little bit. I didn't get any sleep on the plane in the morning. I was just very much in a Zen mode. So that way I wouldn't use any of that intense brain energy. I didn't want to worry about it too much because I knew in the end everything would work out okay. So at about 8:30 p.m. Pacific Coast time was when I got on the road, and I had a 3-hour drive ahead of me. And I knew that driving on a lack of sleep is something that is not safe to do. It's not a very good thing. However, I was still feeling good. However, I did not want to take any chances. And I stopped to get a cup of coffee at about an hour and a half after I'd been driving. And so 21 and a half hours I'd have been awake. I got a grande latte at a Starbucks that was on the way. And that was my first dose of caffeine that I had through this entire trip. And it was like magic. It almost felt like this warmth in me. I felt great and I had some great tunes, and I was able to get that rest of the drive safely with no problem. I didn't feel tired and I was good. And again, this is something that needs to be done very carefully. I knew what I needed to do. I knew how I was hacking my body. So Driving when you are sleep deprived is not recommended because it can be extremely unsafe. But at this point in time, I knew my body, I knew I was going to be okay doing this. When I finally got to the airport on the other side after that 3 hour drive, I was starting to get a little bit more tired at that point. That double espresso, that grande latte that I had had, although it worked great, it didn't give me the longevity that I had wanted. I was hoping it was going to keep me up a little bit longer. So at the airport, I was waiting at the airport for quite some time before I boarded. We had a 6:15 boarding time. And I was already starting to feel a little bit tired again as I was just kind of sitting around the airport. So I did take another little bit of a caffeine with B vitamins, effervescent little tablet that I have, and that was able to be enough to get me to the point, and I felt fine to get me to the boarding time and got on the airplane at 6:15. Once I got on the airplane, I was a little bit tired, and that's when I actually did get some airplane rest. For those of you that have tried to get sleep on an airplane, you know that it is not great sleep. It's terrible sleep. In fact, we were sitting there on the tarmac for probably about 45 minutes before we took off. We were late taking off. So I got a little extra sleep there, a little bit extra sleep when we were in the air. So I went approximately 30 hours before I got any type of sleep whatsoever. Now, if you're young and you're in college and you're pulling all-nighters, it might not seem like a big deal to you, but when you get a little bit older, it does get tougher. I remember when I was in my late teens and early 20s back in my college years, and I was pulling all-nighters, seemed like all the time. It was a lot easier to do back then, even though it was terrible for my health. Now that I'm older and see the wisdom in it, I did what I thought was necessary and did these all-nighters more often than I care to say. But when you do get older, it's a lot more challenging. It's a lot more difficult. So the total trip by the time I got home and then I got in my bed was probably about 34 hours. I did fall asleep at about 33, 34 hours was when I did take a nap and needed to get some much needed rest. Now, the unfortunate thing is that for the next 2 days afterwards, I was flat out exhausted, and it seemed like no amount of sleep could help me feel better. I was just tired and sluggish throughout those days. I still did not have any caffeine because I just don't normally drink caffeine. I stick to my decaf coffee, but I did wound up being very, very tired. Another thing that you want to make sure, and I forgot to say this in the first part of the video, is stay hydrated. And I had my water bottle and I was constantly drinking throughout the trip because staying hydrated is also really key to helping your body stay on track. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick recap. So prior to my trip, 10,000 IUs of vitamin D, and I did that for about a week and a half to really, really boost my vitamin D levels, especially in the winter time, so I didn't get sick. The second thing that I did beforehand was I made sure that I remained caffeine independent, and that is not relying on caffeine to get you started throughout the day. So that way you're utilizing your natural hormones. Now, if you are caffeine dependent all the time, you have to have your morning cup of coffee. You need some time to get adjusted. You can't just give it up for about a week and then you'll be fine. I recommend getting off of it long before you have to do anything like this extreme. When I was on my trip, I tried delaying my meals as much as possible, so almost doing an intermittent fast in the beginning. Although I did not fast, I kept my small snacks to protein only, no sugar. So eat more ketogenic or carnivore style in the first part of the day. And the reason why you want to avoid any type of carbohydrates in that first chunk and that big part of the day is because you really don't want those crashes. You want to keep your blood sugar stable and steady so that way you don't have any unnecessary crashes throughout the day. So that was the third thing. The fourth thing that I would add in there and recommend that I didn't touch on earlier is that you need to stay hydrated. So keep your body drinking fluids all the time. And remember, you don't want to drink caffeinated fluids. So drink any type of protein water or hydrating water, electrolyte water, anything like that that's going to keep you going throughout the day. Another thing I'm going to add in is just making sure that you are not utilizing too much of your brain energy at this point in time. So nothing too much that's going to require extra thinking or anything like that. Just try and maintain a nice, level, steady, calm mood, keep happy, because remember that brain energy your brain uses a lot of energy. So I wanted to reserve my energy as much as possible. And the last thing is don't utilize any caffeine until later in the day. So utilize that caffeine much later when you are starting to get tired, because that's going to take you into the very end of the day. All right. So I just want to emphasize one last time. I do not recommend anything like this very often. This is an extreme case when you have a long day of travel or some kind of emergency situation where you need to get by. And this is only to be utilized in case of emergency, because sleep is so important, because so many things can happen when you are sleep deprived. It's not a good time. We don't think well, we don't function well, we make poor decisions, we can get sick. So there's a lot of reasons why we do need proper and good sleep. However, life happens. Sometimes we just need to do things. And this is why I'm sharing this information, in case you need to hack your body for emergency situations like an extended day of travel, for example. If I have provided valuable content, I would so much appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Also, comment below and let me know if there was anything that stood out during this video. And as I mentioned before, I will put a link to another video talking about caffeine at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace, blessings, and good health, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.